At E3 2015, there was a lot to be excited for. With remakes and sequels coming out, everyone was getting pretty hyped. But there was one game after watching its presentation and seeing its trailer, I knew it was going to be something special, and that's Unravel. This puzzle platformer has finally hit the PlayStation Network, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. But does this game stay wound tight to the finish line, or does it unravel before it reaches its goal? Unravel is a platformer with the heavy emphasis on the puzzles. If you're more a fan of Super Mario running through levels quickly and jumping on enemies' heads, you may not like it quite as much. But for those who enjoy more of the puzzle elements of figuring out how to get across certain gaps, or figuring out how to get higher up in order to solve something, you're definitely going to enjoy Unravel. In the game, you're playing as Yarny, a yarn doll, who is quite small, so that makes everything in the world absolutely humongous, and this game does a brilliant job of making you feel small. Just something like a watering can dwarfs your character, and this makes things like moles, birds, small rocks, tires, and all kinds of various other obstacles really a deadly threat to our main character. Unravel is one of those games that doesn't bombard you with a storyline. There is a story to the game, and it plays out throughout the game in a more subtle way. You start off in a house at the very beginning of the game, you have a bit of a cutscene, and then you take control of your character. Throughout the house, as you're exploring, you'll find picture frames, and that's how you end up entering into the various different levels of the game, and the game features over 10 different levels for you to explore as Yarny. After completing a stage, you'll find like a little yarn patch, and go back to the main hub world where you'll add that patch to a picture book, as well as text and pictures are added to the book for you to look through. As well as the game will have from time to time during levels have these kind of like firefly essences that appear and kind of make a picture in the background that kind of give you a sense of the characters and humans that were going on with the particular story as you're traveling through these various levels. The game takes place in general in kind of a country, small village, so there's a lot of countryside and small town-like settings, but it never gets dull and there's always something unique for each and every single one of the levels in the game. The game does a fantastic job with its weather effects and lighting, as you'll have day and night levels, rain levels, a bunch of different snow levels, and the snow is just absolutely gorgeous. And then you'll enter inside of various different buildings, some like office type settings, some more factory type settings with various different machinery, travel underground into some cave-like things, and even travel through like various different vehicles and other such in order to make it through these levels. Being a yarn doll, yarn is the name of the game. You're traveling through the levels, dragging yarn behind you, and the farther you get from a checkpoint, more of the yarn ends up dragging behind you. If you run out, you won't be able to walk anymore. You'll have to backtrack and figure out another, maybe quicker way, or use another kind of method to use less of your yarn in order to solve a puzzle in order to make it to that next checkpoint. When you make it to a checkpoint, you replenish the amount of yarn you have, and you always have to be looking out for these because sometimes they're not directly in front of you. You may get to a point and see another checkpoint in front of you, but you can't quite reach it. But if you backtrack a little bit, there may have been one up in a tree that you just didn't see. Also, with your yarn, you can use it for a huge variety of different things. You can lasso onto objects and drag them, as well as just grab objects with your main character and move them wherever you may need to put them. You can also make ramps by tying your yarn onto a piece of nail or whatever it may be, and then going to another spot and doing the same. With that same mechanic, you can also tie it between 2 points and make like a trampoline for you to get higher. There's a lot of vine-like swinging using the yarn, and you can even kind of descend like you're spelunking throughout various areas so you can get into smaller caves, or if you fall too far, it's one of those games that does end up killing you if your character ends up dropping too much, so you always have to be cautious that you don't end up letting Yarny drop too far, and always be ready to grab onto the yarn. While you'll be jumping with the X button and grabbing on the objects with the circle button, it's the triggers that are the main purpose of your controller. Using L2 will allow you to pull back your yarn or retract back up the yarn that you may have used, and R2 will allow you to use your lasso or throw out your yarn. So both buttons will be used heavily throughout the game in trying to figure out the various different puzzles. In order to solve these puzzles, not only will you be swinging and setting up trampolines, but you may have to set up a ramp system in order to get an object from one point to another up various different ramps until eventually reaching wherever you need it to go so that you could jump on top of it and then continue on the level. Like I said, there's always some kind of unique puzzle-solving element in each and every one of the stages here, so there's a lot of stuff you'll be seeing a lot throughout the game, but there's always something new that's waiting around the corner to keep things fresh. The game does a good job with its puzzle platforming though. There was a couple of spots where I did get a little bit frustrated trying to figure out, okay, where exactly do I need to go next? And sometimes it may have just been something I didn't see, just like right out of the corner. Especially in some of the darker levels, it's a little bit harder to see things and where they're located, so you always have to keep your eyes peeled to make sure that you didn't miss something as simple as just another hook above you, or maybe there's a rock against the wall that because it's dark you didn't see that, oh, I can actually grab that rock, and then you're able to solve the puzzle. Though there were a couple of times where I definitely figured out the puzzle, but for some reason it just didn't quite work out, but then I did it again, the same exact way sometimes, and it did end up working. But this happened so few and far between that it was never really a hindrance and never became overwhelmingly frustrated. Besides just the puzzle solving, there is a few other elements that are involved with the platforming in general, including various types of vehicle-like things, like riding on a log down a mountain, or riding on rocks or ice in a river to get across from one gap to another, or even attaching yourself to a kite and flying through and having to dodge various tree branches. Like I said, the game's always adding something new to make it interesting. While you're traveling through the levels, there are collectibles for you to grab as well. Each level features 5 collectibles, and they range from ones that are just right out in the open, to ones that you may be able to see, but you gotta solve some pretty complex set of puzzle in order to actually be able to grab said item, and then you also have ones that are just really extremely well hidden. In fact, I haven't even found all the collectibles yet, and I kept a pretty good eye open throughout the course of my playthrough. While the core of the game is the puzzle and platforming, which is what most people are going to be coming for, I have to say though, the thing that this game gets right the most perfect thing about this game is its atmosphere, its graphics, and its music. This game is absolutely gorgeous, and you can tell every single step along the way throughout the game had a lot of heart and soul put into it. The backgrounds are absolutely gorgeous. The weather effects play off the character and the different settings quite well. I mean, they are just really fun to continue on. You want to see what the next level is just going to look like. This is one of those games you could watch someone play and just be kind of in awe. You can actually appreciate it even more because you're not actually trying to jump from platform to platform or swing around. And I'm sure there's a lot of little minor details in the backgrounds and just the levels themselves that I didn't even notice during the course of my playthrough. The music in the game is this folk-like music that just fits the game and its aesthetics absolutely perfectly. If you're a fan of like the music that was in Braid, or if you played Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, in fact there's kind of a few similarities between those games and Unravel in general, but the soundtrack is fantastic. I hope I'm able to get a hold of it outside of the game because it is a real joy to listen to. I could definitely see kind of just having a nice calm relaxing day listening to this soundtrack. From a technical standpoint, the game ran beautifully. I never really ran into any slowdown. The game never crashed on me. I had a couple of very minor glitches. I got stuck one time between like a weather effect happened and knocked me into a spot I couldn't get out of, and a few little minor things like that, a little bit of clipping, but I mean it was extremely minor. I mean maybe 0.1% of my entire play experience. Each of the levels throughout Unravel took me about 25 to 40 minutes to explore fully in order to complete them on the first time. Now I did spend a lot of time also kind of looking around, seeing if I could get a hold of some of the collectibles, and sometimes just had to give up after trying several times in order to get it. So I'd like to say it took me about 5.5 to 6 hours on my initial playthrough, and I still haven't gotten all the collectibles yet. There's also a very nasty trophy for beating every single level without dying in the game, so I can see that being quite a challenge to complete. Swedish developer Coldwood is behind Unravel's development, and I really do hope the game sells very well for them because they have clearly a very creative mind, as there is just love put into every single part of Unravel, and I would love to see another game created by this same group of people. So hopefully some people are able to check it out, and don't let the fact that EA is the publisher on the game hold you back from picking it up. Unravel is not a perfect game, but if you're one of those who can appreciate a puzzle platformer or just love artistic creativity in a game, you need to check this one out. In the end, I'm giving Unravel an 8 out of 10, and I highly recommend it for puzzle platform fans and for those who love a game with a lot of heart and soul poured into it. But guys, that'll wrap up this review for Unravel for the PlayStation 4. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.